let's talk big picture Eagles first.
Okay.
I think in response to the recent record that the Eagles set, which we'll talk about in a second, one writer said, and I'm going to paraphrase this, there's one thing in America that people agree on, or seem to agree on, and it's the Eagles.
I don't know if I would agree with that.
You don't think so? Why not?
I don't think so. We have our detractors. I don't think people in America agree on very much of anything right now, but I guess we're kind of a staple. You know, we've been around for a long time. We're some of the last of our generation to still be playing live. The band started in 1971. Our first record came out in 72. And we've been touring on and off since then, of 53 years of playing for people. So it's been a miraculous run.
And it's a run that people have heavily invested their hearts and their money in. Eagles, their greatest hits, just set a record of being a quadruple diamond seller.
Mm-hmm.
Something that has never happened before in history. What was your reaction when you heard that?
Amazement and gratitude. I mean, I knew we were getting. I heard a year, 2 or 3 ago, that we were at 38 million. So I knew that we were in that area somewhere. But they have a whole new process now for certification. They count streams. I forget how many streams it is that are equivalent to an album. You can look that up. It's not in my database, but so that's a combination of physical product and streaming, we're just grateful. I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't think about it too much.
Why not?
It doesn't. I have other things to think about, I have a family, and I have, health and the state of the world and the state of the country, and all these other things to think about. It doesn't. I mean, it's nice, and we all appreciate it, and we're proud of having put in the work. We all have a good work ethic, and. Which has enabled us to continue to play for the last 53 years. And what makes us happy is that we make other people happy. And people need, we say that music is medicine, and people need some medicine right now, because we're ailing in this country. And it's great to get into a room with, several thousand people and have everybody be on more or less the same page. And it's not like a sporting event where there's a winner and a loser. Somebody goes home happy and somebody goes home angry or mad. And we get to win every night, and the audience gets to win. And it's a wonderful way to spend your time. And it's a great job to have. And it is a job. It's hard work. It may look glamorous, but it's hard work. But we get to make people happy, and we get to make people have a communal experience. Again, everybody's more or less on the same page at our concerts. So that's a great reward, and it's a wonderful occupation, and we're just lucky. We're lucky people.
It is remarkable that the album that is the #1 seller is 50 years old in February.
Yeah.
That there's that longevity.
Yeah. Greatest hits is kind of a misnomer. It should just be called their best songs. Because every song on that album was not a great hit. There are a couple of songs on that album that didn't break the top 30, but they're good songs. Desperado, for example, was never released as a single. Not by us, nor by Linda Ronstadt.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but it's become, over time, sort of a classic, beloved piece of material. But it was never a single. Tequila Sunrise, Already Gone, didn't crack the top 30. But they're still good songs. They're well cracked. Some people consider music and songwriting to be an art, and maybe it is, but we also we also thought about it as a craft, and we believe in craftsmanship. There are 2 or 3 different schools of thought in rock and roll. One school is the amateur sort of school where anybody can do it, and you just get in your garage and you just bang out some stuff and you just dash off some. I used to have people come up to me and say, "Well, I wrote 15, 20 songs this week," and I went, "Wow, okay. Hope they're good."
That's not how you did it.
That's not how we did it. We took pains, we took time, we tried to get better all the time. We studied other songwriters. We listened to a lot of music, a lot of people that we admired, and we formed a lot of opinions about the work. It was painstaking work, and that seems to work. It seems to have paid off somehow, because these songs have endured. There are people who are much more artsy than we were, who have had great success, and that's fine. But we're more old school, even middle of the road, you might say, but not boring.
No, you're not boring.
No, we're not. But the funny story about this Greatest Hits album, it was something that we weren't in favor of.
I was going to ask you that. You didn't want to make a Greatest Hits album.
No, we were pretty much blindsided by that, but the record company telling us they were going to do that, and which they contractually had the right to do. We didn't have any way to stop them except just to complain.
And you complained?
We complained. Oh yeah, you can see it's documented. Back then, the Beatles had set an impossibly high standard for productivity. Cranking out 2-3 albums a year, and of course they stopped touring, so it was that helped. But we were touring, and it's hard. We always had trouble writing songs on the road. We did better when we were at home, and we didn't have to worry about going on stage and preparing for that. But the Beatles had set this standard of putting out all these albums in succession, and record companies came to expect that of everybody.
So they expected that of you.
They expected that of us, and if we didn't come up with something we made our first album in 2 weeks, and I can still hear it.
What do you mean?
I can hear the flaws in it.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, and then we started taking longer and longer and longer between each record, because again we were touring a lot, and that was tiring and exhausting. And one of these nights, the album before the Greatest Hits album came out in June of 1975, and so about 6 months went by. We were still working on the next album, and so the record company got antsy. They got impatient and said, "Well, we got to put out something. We got to put out some product." And so they put out the Greatest Hits album in February of 1976. It did well from the get-go. But the funny thing, the ironic thing, is we hadn't reached our creative peak yet. Hotel California is not part of the Greatest Hits album, and it didn't come out until December of 1976.
It's amazing. You released the Greatest Hits album, and then released Hotel California.
Then we released Hotel California.
And by the way, the Greatest Hits album is #1 bestseller of all time. Then there's Thriller. Number 3, as you know, is Hotel California.
That's what they tell me, yeah. Go figure.
Did you at least get to choose the songs that were on the Greatest Hits album?
No, I don't think we did. Our producer, Bill Simzik, was tapped to master and sequence the Greatest Hits album. And we found out later that he was doing it. We were recording in Florida, working on the Hotel California album down there at Criteria Studios. And in the morning, he was working on the Greatest Hits album, doing the sequencing and the mastering. And then we would show up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he would come in and record Hotel California songs with us.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't think I was even aware that he was doing that double duty at that time. But I think he did the sequencing, which is important. it's important to sequence songs on an album. You have to take tempo and key and subject matter into consideration when you're sequencing an album. Try to make it flow. So he did that. That's about all we had to do with it, except writing the songs.
Go back to, you mentioned Desperado wasn't a hit. I want to go back and talk about that song a little
Okay.
bit. That was the first time that you wrote a song with Glenn Frey.
That's right.
Did you immediately click as songwriting partners?
Yeah, I think we did. That was the first time we'd written together, and I'd rented this little cabin up at the top of Laurel Canyon, and he came over, and I had an old upright piano in there, and I had beginnings of the song that I had started back in like '69 or '68 or something like that, and I showed him the bits and pieces that I had, and he sat down at the piano, and it was sort of based on an old American songwriter who at one point in time was America's most popular songwriter, a guy named Stephen Foster, who died penniless in New York City. But it was based on his songs that my grandmother used to sing in her rocking chair. And Glenn knew who Stephen Foster was, and just sort of picked up the thread and went with it. And he was great. We used to call him the lone arranger.
The lone arranger.
Yeah, because he was so good at arranging songs.
And when you recorded it, you were only able to do so many takes?
Yeah, I've told it. Yeah, I don't want to. Well, we had a very well-known, highly respected British producer named Glenn Johns, and he wanted to make the album in an economic fashion that would not spend a whole lot of money, because that was what the record company wanted, and that was also his methodology of making records: just get in there and get it and get out. So, as I said, we made the album in 2 weeks, and I was singing Desperado, and they had part of the London Symphony Orchestra in the studio, which was very intimidating to me. I mean, all these older guys back there, and they were bored silly. Some of them had chessboards set up between their chairs, and between takes they would play chess.
What that does to you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It was funny, actually, in retrospect. And it was, the string part is a lovely string part. It was written by my old friend and college mate, Jim Ed Norman, and he was conducting. And I don't know if he had ever conducted an orchestra before, but he got up there and faked it really well. And he's standing on a box in front of all these old, crusty, gnarly string players. And there was nothing particularly challenging about the orchestration. I think they were just doing it for it was a job for them. So I think I got to do about 4 takes, maybe 5, and I still have a little trouble with the intonation on the lead vocal to this day. I don't listen to it.
You don't listen to it?
No, we don't listen to any.
You don't listen to any of your music?
No. Why would I?
How
I have
could
to
you
play it every night. No, I don't listen to much of any music anymore.
Why not?
I don't know. I think. I mean, once in a while I'll turn on the radio or I'll put on a classical record, maybe. I listen to audiobooks, but I don't know. Anything can get old after a while. No, I can listen. After maybe 20 years go by, I can go back and listen to something. But again, I hear the flaws and what we should have or could have done in a particular instance.
Don't you think the flaws are sometimes what makes it, though?
Yeah, I know. Rock and roll is supposed to be flawed, according to that school.
But
yeah, I mean, it's not terribly flawed. They're minor things, and obviously most people didn't notice. But it takes me back to times that were very pressurized and in some cases difficult. I mean, there was joy too. You know, we had a lot of laughs in the studio. We laughed ourselves silly sometimes, but there was also a lot of tension and some disagreement and just some. It's just typical band stuff. Anybody who's ever been in a band knows what I'm talking about. Or working tightly with any group of people over a number of years, you get to know the other people so well. You know all their tics and their peccadillos and their habits and their eccentricities, and it becomes wearing after a while.
Which is why you took some time away from each other.
A 14-year break. Yeah, which was a good thing. In retrospect, it was good.
Why do you say that?
Well, first of all, it gave us all a chance to express ourselves individually. It gave the public a chance to miss us, that we weren't too ubiquitous, we weren't around all the time. But I have to give credit and thanks to what they call classic rock radio for keeping our music alive. You know, we went away, but the tunes kept getting played on the radio. So when we came back, I think people had missed us a little bit, you know, in terms of live performance anyway.
I think last time Sunday Morning spoke to you, you said that you're a guy who doesn't really like the limelight.
Yeah.
What brings you back then?
I like working. I like seeing all those happy faces out there. I like to see the audience having a good time. I like the structure of touring. I mean, we have a wonderful crew of about 100 people, some of whom have been with us for 50 years or more, and everything runs like a Swiss watch. And I like that. You know, I also like gardening, and I also like reading books, and I like cooking, but you know, I like to have some variation in my life. But it's always good to come back to this. We call it the mothership. You know, we can all go off and do our own thing, and then we have this thing to come back to that we all know very well, that works really well for us. So, you know, I think this year will probably be it. I've said things like that before, but I feel like we're getting toward the end, and that will be fine too.
You think 2026 will be the end of
I think so, yeah.
the Eagles?
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
Why?
Because I would like to spend more time with my family, and I would like to spend more time growing vegetables. And I'd like to I've traveled all over the world, but I haven't seen much of it because we see the airports and the hotel room and the venue, and we don't get out much, you know. And so I'd like to go back to some of the same places I've been and see more of those places, you know, before it all disappears or it all gets vaporized or whatever. But yeah, there are lots of things to do. I mean, I don't ever want to have a one-dimensional life. I mean, this is great, this is wonderful, but there are other things. I mean, I have 2 nonprofit environmental organizations that I chair and that I feel are really important for conservation and preservation. You know, I have 4 kids and a grandchild. There's just lots of other things to do.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You produced a documentary on Henry David Thoreau with Ken Burns.
Yes, which was an honor. Ken Burns and 2 brothers who have worked with Ken Burns for a long time called the Ewers brothers, Eric and Chris Ewers, E-W-E-R-S. So they were deeply involved in this as well. Yeah, we're done with it, and it's going to premiere on PBS on March 30th and March 31st. 3 episodes.
Do you think, because you read so much, Thoreau, Emerson, all of these books, you were an English major, there's a poetry to your lyrics? I mean, I think about Take Another Shot at Courage, just that, so simple. and it just says it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we approached poetry sometimes. Poetry's a little bit of a different animal. It's harder, I think.
Do you have a favorite lyric that you've written?
Just to go back to the shot of courage thing, I think that's a line that came from when we used to hang out at the Troubadour. And we'd say maybe see a pretty girl, and we wanted to go over and talk to her. And one of us would hand the other one a shot of tequila and say, "Here's some instant courage."
That's literally where it came from.
That's literally where it came from. Here, have some instant courage. I think that was probably Glenn's line.
It's a pretty good line.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite line that you wrote?
Nah. Not that I can pull out of the air right now. No.
Did it get to the point where you and Glenn could finish each other's sentences?
Yeah, we got to that point. Yeah. Around the mid-'70s, when we would start to do an album, we'd just move in together, rent a house together, and we were the odd couple.
How so? Who was who?
Glenn was a smoker. He smoked cigarettes, and he would leave butts all over them. He would stand them up, like in little groups of cigarette butts standing on the filters, and they looked like little cities, little skyscrapers. And I would clean them up. I was the housekeeper.
You were the Felix to his Oscar.
Yeah. And we would, we would get up and have coffee, and then get out the legal pads and sit down at the coffee table and start to work, in the early afternoon. And then we'd finish up around 6 and go down to the Troubadour or down to Dantana's and have dinner and people watch and try to gather material from observation.
And would you write while you were out?
Sometimes we wrote on napkins at Dantana's, yeah.
Did you save any of those napkins?
Oh gosh, I wish. I don't think I don't know if I have any. Glenn's wife might have some. I don't know. It never occurred to you don't think about those things then at that time.
Right. You're thinking about how am I going to get up the courage to go talk to that young woman?
Yeah, or how are we gonna finish this song? Or who's gonna drive home?
How different is it now, partying wise, than it used to be?
Well, there's no partying.
There's none.
There's none. No, I often say it's like a morgue backstage.
What do you mean?
Well, it's just very quiet. We all have our separate rooms, and we all have our pre-show rituals that we do. Some people meditate, some people work out.
What do you do?
I work out
Like lift weights?
with the guy who was coughing.
So you have a trainer, and do you
Yeah.
do push-ups, lifts, weights, that
Well,
kind
the
of stuff?
first thing I do is I have a stationary recumbent bike, and I ride that for half an hour. The equivalent of about 5 miles. And then we do stretching, and then we do mat work. I do crunches and planks and other kinds of stretching.
Wow. So
Then-
you're doing sit-ups before you go on stage?
Before show, yeah. And then we do weights and squats and lunges and all the stuff I hate. Yeah, that's before the show. And that's my warm-up. I don't do voice exercises because it doesn't help. Tightening the abdomen, it's where I sing from. So I sing better if I keep that in shape.
Oh, interesting. You got to keep your abs in shape for your voice.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a six-pack or anything, but there's one under there somewhere.
What's it like now to sit there and see Deacon Frey, where Glenn used to be?
I burst with pride. I almost got tears in my eyes the other night when he was filling in for Joe. And he's more talented than people know. He can play pretty much everything in the catalog. And he just stepped up, back in 2017, whatever it was. His first show with us was at Dodger Stadium before 56,000 people.
Wow.
That was his first show.
First show.
Yeah. He just did it. He's amazing. And now he's a father of two, and all grown up. He's 31, I think. So I really am proud of him, and I love to watch him play. He plays his dad's guitar on a lot of the songs, same guitar.
Was there any sort of internal debate about going on after Glenn died?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't think it was feasible.
You didn't think it was going to happen?
No. And then a year went by, and our manager, Mr. Azoff, came to me and he said, I've been talking to a lot of people in the industry, and there are still a lot of fans out there who would like to see you come back and play music. And I said, well, I'll think about that. So we thought about it, and I said to them, well, I'll only do it if we can get Glenn's son to be in the band.
That was your condition?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because I wanted the blood. There's a tradition both here and in Europe of called the Guild, where the son apprentices, whether it's carpentry or glass blowing or any kind of artisan or craft, where there's apprenticeship in the family, and the son works with the father until the son is, develops an ability that is high enough and good enough to go out on his own and carry on the tradition of what his father did. And I have to give Bono credit, because he reminded me of that when I was at a convention in Europe, and he was there, and we were sitting by each other at dinner, and I was telling him that I was in a quandary about what to do about the band, and he said, well, there's this thing called the Guild. And I went, of course. Duh. And so I have to give him credit.
Bono told you, essentially, you could have Glenn's son, kind of his apprentice.
He just told me that there was a tradition, of things like that, of that kind of thing happening. I mean, Ringo's son is a drummer, and there are a lot of offspring in the business. Then we decided that Vince Gill would be the other person who would be capable. Basically, it took two people to replace Glenn. But it works very well. I think I still read reviews where people are surprised, especially surprised at Vince, because they thought he was just a country artist, but he's so much more than that. And he was so delighted to get the chance to play rock and roll. He showed up the first day with these big amplifiers. And I said, what is that stuff? And he just said, it's my amps. I said, okay, let's half that.
We don't want that much.
He is so talented and such a great guy. So it's been working pretty well. The Sphere run has been a late career blessing for us. We're just grateful for it. It's a nice way to go out.
Talk about the Sphere. Did you have any hesitation about playing in the Sphere?
Oh yeah. Because it's kind of a different ballgame. First of all, you can't have any amplifiers on stage. I mean, you can, but it blocks some of the images that are projected not projected, but that are on the walls, on the dome. So we have these, in the old days we had monitors on the floor that were called wedges, but then they developed these in-ear things that everybody uses now, so that you hear everything in this little earpiece, like earbuds, but they're bigger. And we were accustomed to using those, but we were only accustomed to putting one in one ear and having the other ear open so that you can hear what's kind of going on stage. Here you can't do that, because there's a sound anomaly, there's a bounce, and it's a delay. And so when you're playing, everything it comes back like a few milliseconds later.
Oh dear.
So you have to wear these monitors in both ears, and that's the only, so you can't hear any of the stuff that's going on around you. It all comes through here. which puts a big burden on the monitor mixers, on the guys who mix this stuff. We have two of them, one on each side of the stage. And one guy mixes the sound for half the band, and the other guy mixes the sound for the other half of the band. And so that was a learning curve that took some getting used to. But we're accustomed to it now.
So many of your songs, I think of Hotel California, are cinematic.
Yeah.
So was that part of the allure that, hey, we could actually put the images up?
Yeah. We had mixed emotions about that, because on the one hand, you want to leave things to people's imaginations so that they can form their own fantasies about what the song's about and have their own little movies. And then when we do it and put it on the wall here, it sort of makes it more concrete and pat. So,
it's like explaining a song.
Yeah. So we kept that in mind when we were doing some of these. And some of the images, I'll admit, are literal, like probably too literal. But
is there a dark desert highway?
There is. Yeah. And there's a guy in a car and stuff. But we tried to do it in a fashion that was still mysterious and romantic and interesting. The other thing about it is it's technologically difficult to do it, because you have to use this camera that belongs to the Sphere, which has a 16K resolution. I think there are only two of them in the world. The Sphere owns one and Sony owns the other one. And that's the only thing that will work in here. So when you make content, I like to joke and say now we're not just singer-songwriters, we're content providers. So when you make content, you have to drag that camera around all over wherever the location is on the planet that you want to film something. And it's a real big deal. It's a pain, and it's time consuming, and it's expensive. It's very expensive. Millions of dollars we spent on this content. So all those things were a concern for us.
So maybe you need to extend the Sphere residency
Well, that's
into
one reason
2027.
one reason we did extend it is because we've made this stuff now, and we've made this thing that we're in called the Pop-Up, which is a physical experience. We've sort of rebuilt parts of LA here. So that was as good a reason as any to extend it, plus customer demand, of course, of a consumer demand, to put it in business terms. But March will be the end of it, and again, that's fine. But it's been a great experience. We don't have to drag all the equipment and the crew all over the country. We just fly back and forth to LA and back here, and it's close and it's convenient. And so it's been a great thing.
How different or the same does it feel compared to the 70s when you were started out?
Well, that takes me back to one thing I forgot to mention, which is the sound system here. The sound system is like nothing on the planet. There are about 167,000 speakers in that dome.
Is that intimidating?
It was at first. I'm going, God, they can hear all the mistakes. But I came to see U2, and I came to see the Dead and Company when they were here, just to get an idea of what it's like. And it is so clear. And so, and you can talk, and still at the same time you can hear, because it's not too loud, and it's not too quiet, and it's just sort of just right. And you can talk to the person next to you, and you can still hear each other without yelling. That's really the thing that we like the most, is this sound system. There's nothing like it, and it's so different from playing a venue that's made for sports, for football or basketball. But they don't have any acoustical properties really, But this thing was made for music and now film, and so it's wonderful to have something of that quality that you can play with.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what if people say, we want more Eagles after this?
I guess they'll just have to listen to the records. We're going to film this, I think we already did, as a matter of fact. And so there'll be that. You know, U2 filmed their concerts, and you can see that here sometimes. It's not exactly like the real experience, but it's close. You know, 3 of us are 78 years old now, including yours truly. So the body, you know, we all have various ailments. I have what they call drummer's back, and every drummer I know has a back problem. It just happens.
What does that mean
It
for
means
you?
surgery eventually.
Is it like a disc that's...
Yeah, it's a collapse. Yeah, in the lumbar spine. But I've had it for a long time.
And it literally comes from drumming.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that and shoulders and hands. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, you know, it's just part of the deal. And I can't do anything about it while we're still working. I have to wait till we stop so I can, you know, so I can do something about it. I mean, I do Pilates and I do all that stuff, whatever I can to mitigate the pain and stuff, but you can only do so much. So there's just wear and tear, you know, on everybody, and in the voices, you know, that goes. I'm a horse just talking to you, because we're in the desert.
I know, I'm sorry, and I know you have a show, and here we are talking.
Not tonight, I don't. But you know, and it's hard singing in the desert. It's very dry. But again, I'm not complaining. I'm just glad to be here.
How do you combat the dry?
Well, in the hotel, we all have humidifiers in our rooms. There's not much you can do on stage. I mean, I drink a lot of water during the show.
You touched on this when we first started talking, but since you said this all sounds like it's coming to an end, what's the legacy of the Eagles, in your opinion?
Just the music and the memories that it creates for people, you know. And the legacy is whatever it means to them. Yeah. And I've said this before, but we don't think about legacy too much. You know, it doesn't do. It doesn't. And we've had a great run, you know, an extraordinary run, and left people with a lot of good memories and some good music, and I'll be fine when that's done.
I love it. So when you talk about people loving to hear the hits, are there ever times that you have to kind of psych yourself up to play the songs that you've played for 50-some years now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like every night.
Every night.
But you know, we went through a period like that where we were just really, you know, and then after a while you learn to make friends with these things, you know.
With the songs.
With the songs, yeah. They become like an old jacket that you like, or you know, an old car that you love, and you realize that you have to realize what they mean to other people. You know, it's not about us, it's about what they mean to the people we're playing them for, and therefore you have to play them every night with your heart in it, and you do it because of those people out there, because a lot of them, not only did they pay for a lot of money for tickets, they flew a long way, they made hotel reservations, they went to a lot of trouble and expense to get here. Some people have come here from Europe to see the show. They come from the UK, they come from Scandinavia, some people come from the Middle East, they come from all over. So we have to bear that in mind.
You sure do.
Not every song is a gem, but some of them are pretty good. But you know, Thoreau studied Eastern religions at Harvard, which included Buddhism, which again is about attention.
Right.
And that's one of the things I fear about this modern age and about these phones and about the internet, is that people are losing their ability to pay attention, or at least to pay attention to things that have value, to things that matter. There's so much distraction, there's so much garbage on the internet. I mean, the internet is a wonderful thing. I use it every day. But there's also just tons of garbage and misinformation, and I mean, there's a whole other discussion.
But you know what? Maybe part of the reason that your album continues to be the #1 seller, is that people want something that is not this information overload. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like there's something there.
Well, despite all the progress we've made in this day and age, sometimes the past is better. And sometimes older things are better. You know, it's why we buy antiques, and you know, it's why we love old cars. They have a quality and a personality to them that's sort of missing.
But maybe the Eagles' music is in that.
I hope so. You know, I mean, that's nice to think. We'll see if it matters 100 years from now. Well, we won't see, but
Someone will see.
Someone will, yeah. But I think we captured our time, you know, and I think we captured some universal themes that will be relevant from here on out. You know, things about human nature and human behavior, human desire, human folly. I think all those things are in there. So yeah, there must be a reason people are still listening to this stuff. But again, I don't want to think about that too much.
I get that.